We're very glad that today we have got a very interesting speaker. I only can tell you up front, there's not going to be no questions regarding schools, he told me. So it's your turn to ask him about school. Lukas from Anyline, he will be here with us tonight. Lukas, please come on stage. So give us a bit of an insight, where did you grow up? And yeah, then we're going to start about business.
Great. Well, I grew up in Tyrol, so I think it's in the best interest of everybody that I speak English. Yeah, I grew up in Tyrol in Wattens, a very small city near Innsbruck, mostly well known because of Swarovski, which is there in Wattens with their Swarovski stuff. I attended school in Tyrol, and afterwards I started working at a company in Tyrol, and it somehow got a little bit narrow in Tyrol. I was not so satisfied about how things run there, so I went to Vienna. I started working for a consulting company, and afterwards I started studying. And after studying, I started with my own startup. Yeah, so that's the short version.
That's a quite short version. So how long did you work in Tyrol? And did you move over right away, or was it like a part-time thing? And why did you start studying? And did you finish studying? I never finished. So
yeah. Well, that was the hardest challenge I had in my life. I still studied while I was already working on our startup, and it was really hard. But I at least got the bachelor, which I'm really proud of. When I finished with my school in Tyrol, I started working for a company who is called Tyrolit. It's a classical industry, like a classical company, 5,000 employees. I started in the SAP environment. I developed web shops, and that got boring quite quickly. And afterwards, I thought I got my next challenge, and I actually wanted to go to the United States, which didn't work out.
But in Vienna, it's almost the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, but I took the second chance. My first goal would have been going to the United States, but then I chose Vienna, and that's where I'm staying here now since 9 years. Yeah.
So let's get down to business. So how, maybe a short introduction of what Anyline does. So because of course everybody in the room had a look at the website first and knows what they're doing and knows what job they're offering and all that stuff. But maybe give them for our viewers over live stream, you can give them a short introduction what Anyline does, and then maybe how you started the whole thing, like how did your entrepreneurial journey begin with, and then how did you develop?
Yeah, great. Well, Anyline is a text recognition technology for smartphones. So we say that we teach smartphones how to read. With our technology, you can scan all sorts of things, various objects like credit cards, like debit cards, passports, meters, gas meters or blood sugar meters. So every object where something is written on, you can just use the camera frame of your smartphone, your camera, and just scan everything and import that data into any application. So that's how, for example, at MySugar, diabetes guys scan their blood sugar values, or other companies, our clients, scan passports, debit cards, or if you're based in Vienna, you probably sometimes...
Are all those passports on your servers? Can I have them?
No, we are not saving any data on our server because Anyline is working offline directly on the phone. It's completely offline. Yeah, we're not saving any data. Yeah.
So, how did you get to this idea, and how did was the first phase, and maybe some insights into you getting started, and who did you found the company with, so that people get a bit of an insight how this all started?
Sure. Well, actually, it started 15 years ago because my co-founder is Daniel. He's one of my co-founders. Went to school with me, and I was his neighbor in school. And when I moved to Vienna, I somehow connected again with him. We didn't see each other a lot while my during my working time, but afterwards, when I started studying, I met with him, and he was my roommate when we started, actually. And the story is actually quite simple. We wanted to get rich really fast, so we started making apps. That 2010, that was a good idea. Now probably it's not so good idea anymore. But 2010, everything got sold. You know, you could just make an app in 2 hours, and you got downloads, and you could make money with it. So we made 30 apps, which was not successfully
Are
successful.
some embarrassing ones on?
Very embarrassing. Yeah, I'm very happy that.
Very
none of
happy to
them
share
are
the
really
names of
apps.
this app that everybody can watch them.
Yeah, well, there are. Well, we made all kinds of things. For example, we made the Mondkalender, the große Mondkalender, which shows how when you should cut your hair. We made something which was called Bibelsprüche, with very nice slogans from Christians. Yeah, very embarrassing stuff. Yeah, and nothing worked. But it was the best time in my life because I learned so much about the App Store and about how people react. And that's when we got started. And after we figured out that we are probably not the best guys to distribute apps, but we were really good at developing apps. But we couldn't design them, we couldn't market them. We were good at one single stuff, like one single point in that whole chain of developing a software. So we made that to our premises and said, well, there are so many people out there who already have an idea and who already have a business model, and they don't have to care about all that stuff. So we just make the app for them. And that's when we started developing apps for other companies. And our first customer was Mr. Lugner. Yeah.
What was the app about?
We made Lugner a Kino City app. The first app where you could buy your mobile ticket online directly in the app and just show your app at the counter and get into the cinema, yeah?
Like, was he directly involved?
He was directly involved, yeah. I met with him a couple of times, yeah.
That probably was interesting.
Yeah, very interesting, yeah. Yeah, but that was the first project, and then we had, you could call it app agency. We created an app agency. We made projects for various Austrian companies like United Optics or Megaplex or whatever. And that was a very fascinating time because we figured out that we are really good at developing software and we really like it. And that's something which doesn't come handy if you sell projects to other companies. Because you need to, you're not, if you're the guy who wants to make things perfect, that's something which doesn't fit to agency business.
Definitely not. I'm in agency business. So,
yeah.
So that was, then you started with, like, how many apps did you do before you came up with what in the end became Anyline? Or how like, did you come up with, we should do this scanning text recognition thing for the smartphone? Like, how did that come about?
Well, when we were in the agency business for a year or so, I had actually a clash with Daniel, because Daniel, our CTO, was developing extraordinary good, but not in terms of speed. He was trying hard to make everything perfect. So we somehow got troubles to deliver not in quality, but in time and in budget. So we had we had that big discussion. What shall we do? I mean, we need to change something. We can either change the quality or we can change what we are actually doing. And that's when we met MySugar here at Sector 5. We were sitting right here, and MySugar was down the hall. And they were obviously, as a medical producer, quite keen because of quality. And we somehow started working together with them. We developed apps for MySugar. And one day, Frank, the CEO of MySugar, came to me with that question if we would be able to scan values from blood sugar meters. And back then, we didn't have any idea about OCR. So I told him, no problem at all. 2 weeks and you will have a fine
Oh, the
prototype.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
You did the 2 week thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Exactly, yeah.
Everybody does that in the industry.
Yeah. That was. I mean, it was. We knew it would be challenging, but we didn't expect that this would be such a big challenging thing, and we just started, and somehow it made fun, and it was just actually really great. I don't in the retrospective I don't I can't recall that it was a pain. I mean, we knew it was really hard, and we ran out of money because that was so expensive developing it. So we got the FFG on board with the funding, and we started developing that. Now we call it Anyline, but back then it was just one big huge challenge we wanted to face.
You said, like when you started with your partners, like I know that there's
Yeah.
4 founders. Like, did they all meet at the same time? Like, are they all related, like you and your school friend? Like,
Yeah.
school friends are always great. You can always use them to do your video stuff, like over here. It's always great. Always universities people you can always use to other stuff. It's great. But like, how did you meet the others? Or
Yeah, well, I met David, the third founder, also in school. He also went in the same class. Like 6 other employees, I just employed the whole class, which came handy because I knew them all from school. So I knew not. It's just a big advantage if you know people. Also, big disadvantage if you need to discuss with them, specifically salary and stuff like that. But having that trustworthy relationship with people is something which I find really good in business. And the fourth, Jakob, I knew since university, and he was the fourth who joined the group. Yeah.
okay, so and now you had My Sugar. Oh, by the way, little advertising. If you want to watch, Frank was here with us. It's online on YouTube. You can watch the whole interview. It was a very interesting talk. End of advertising. So like at this, then you did a FFG project with My Sugar, like as a client, and then like what was the first steps? Because then you got a couple of customers. I know a couple of them, but I'm not gonna take anything beforehand. Like how did this develop? Like was the next step? Because you of course still had the agency business, and like was that difficult? And how did you handle like that difference between product development and agency, which is maybe in your case not that different because you were focused very much on quality, but in somebody who is from an agency business, I know like timelines and stuff is always really difficult to handle.
Yeah. Well, that was a big challenge. If you have your own business which is running okay, maybe not great, but still fine, and you need to change your course, you need to change what you're doing dramatically so that your core business is not the same anymore. That's something where you suffer because there is a relationship with your customer. I mean, there are some which are nice, some they are not nice, but still, in average, it's just something you don't want to give up, but you need to give it up. You just need to let it go, and that's something which is really hard. And we somehow managed that. A couple of really good developers actually took over our agency business, which made me very happy because I know that our former customers are well treated and everything's fine on their side, and there is the chance for a couple of other young developers who want to do that business to grow fast. Yeah.
Like in the founders team, I don't know how big you have been at that stage. Like, how was that discussion? Like, was that smooth? Okay, we're gonna change the course. Everything is in another direction, or is it like 6 months of struggling and 2 were against and 2 were pro, and half of you were not pro, and like how did that work out, and how did you handle that? Because it's a strong communication issue.
Yeah, if somebody's telling you that they just knew what they want to do, and it was clear and everything was really on go, that's probably not true, because that doesn't work like that. You're struggling, you don't know what you're doing. It's really hard, and it was a big discussion. And I actually know when we had I think we were 8 people or 10, and we decided that we in the future will be Anyline. And we were sitting together, the 4 founders, and like, yeah, so who is going to tell the guys that we are changing our business? You know, who's telling them that we completely change our business model and doing some other stuff? And that's when we went outside and made our all hands meeting and told the people like, yeah, well, from now on we are called Anyline. Yay! It was like, you know, like everybody was insecure, and that's something totally normal. And I think it's just a process where when you're having that time, I think it's just a process, and you have to just do it.
Okay, so basically, so then there was this decision, and everybody was like, "Hooray!" So, what was the next steps and timeline? Or what was the major milestones or the major negative things that you experienced, and that you would like to tell people to not do, even if they will do it, probably.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, what was this next phase from in like really getting started with what is now Anyline?
Well, if you think about that, what, like, for example, happened within Anyline, when I see it, it's somehow clear. Everybody says, well, it was totally clear that you need to do Anyline because that's a sustainable business, it's scalable, you will find investors, you will not have the hardest time because it's a high technology, it's cutting edge, just do that. But when you're in that situation, nothing of that will appear. Nobody will tell you it's a great idea and you will find it. I mean, people who like you and want to motivate you will say that, but it's not something that you feel. It's not something that you would believe, and that's the point. You just need to, go on. It's not like that. It's not a clear picture. It's just something you probably want to try out. Something that it makes you curious. It's just something you want to try out.
So how did you get the second customer? And like, because your first customer was a startup as well, and like, what was then the next step? Because of course, startups and startups understand each other, but startups and your customers are quite big corporations. That's quite a different thing, to say the least. Like, give us some insight into that and like your experiences and maybe also the learnings that we can take from it.
Yeah. When we started Anyline, mobile OCR was not very common. Nowadays, you can scan your credit card, you can scan checks, you can scan various things, and people are comfortable with using their smartphone for scanning things. When we started, that was something very odd. People wouldn't have expected that a smartphone enables you to do such stuff. So there were very, very less companies who made mobile OCR, what we are doing, our technology. But those companies who did look for somebody like us, they were desperate. They were like looking for somebody since months. And one of our first customers, Red Bull Mobile, was looking for somebody since months. They were searching for months for somebody who was able to scan voucher codes and couldn't find anybody. And
From a can.
From a can, yeah. From a can. 8-digit voucher code for a loyalty program. And they were so happy when they met us because we were able to deliver a prototype very quickly, and we were like, it was accurate and it was fast and was exactly what they wanted. And that's something which helped us a lot.
It worked.
It worked really well, yeah. We delivered and it worked really well. And that's one of those key projects we had at the beginning. The second project was with a utility, with an energy grid provider, who was also looking for that solution for scanning gas and water meters and electricity meters. And also there, the same story. They were looking for something similar than our technology, and there was nothing on the market. There was just nothing on the market you could use. And that's something which sounds really good, but actually is really bad, because people say there's no market, because if there would be a market, there would be already people doing that. So having no competition at all is something really bad. Having at least 2 or 3 competitors is something really good, because then you can show that the market is there and people already earn money. Yeah, having no competition is actually not so good. Yeah,
There was really no competitor at that stage.
not
that you know.
actually not at the moment. We have competition, but it's like, yeah, on one hand.
Okay, so like that was now a different sales process than on a small startup like My Sugar, which I know, and like where it is like very familiar. So is there like, can you give some learnings about selling into big corporations? Because that's something very important, because selling is one of the most important aspects, and a lot of people don't tend to see it that way, but if you experience it.
That's something I would I want to tell, because it happened to myself. Well, when we made that precious technology, everybody thought like, let's keep the doors shut, and at 9 o'clock, we open the doors and like people scream and run and want to buy that software so badly, and we don't need sales guys, because people will just call us and they want to buy, and they will shut up and take my money, like really. But that doesn't happen, and that doesn't happen at all. And I thought that will happen, and it didn't happen at all. And I would say for every startup, this is something people totally underestimate, that selling is the key point. No, there is no way without selling. There's just no way. And selling is very difficult. Wherever you are, whatever you do, it's even if you have that gold nugget, it's still fucking difficult to sell something. Yeah.
I think you stressed that quite intensely.
Okay, great. That's important, because people need to know that this is not easy. Yeah.
I don't know, what's the next major step in the development? Was it then Hansi, or was there some major steps that you took that you want to like share with us?
Well, after having a couple of customers, we felt comfortable to think about investors, and we were really lucky, and also because of that My Sugar connection, we already knew Hansi Hansmann, and in December 2014 he decided to go that journey with us, and that was one of the I was so happy about that, and we are still so happy about that. Having a good business angel in the same boat is something I don't think you can do it without a good business angel. Yeah, it's very good to have a great business angel on board. Yeah.
I've read that you you got some exposure at Pioneers somewhere. Like, how important was that for your business? Or was it more nice to have, or was it really important for you?
Every exposure is very important.
That's why you agreed to do this with me.
Yeah, definitely. No, but when I think about the journey we had and the things which were really important, it's always about people. You meet people, and if you don't meet people, you don't have progress. So wherever you can meet people, you should totally do that, because it's just, you never know what happens. You never know if there's somebody who is really important for your business just sitting in your audience, or if a new employee sits in the audience, or whatever, like just could
Oh, by the way, they are
everything.
hiring. Did I say that before?
You're
Only
hiring,
that you know. Maybe coming back to that hiring, I've read in a blog post, I think it was a German one, that some of the developers are still in Innsbruck for some time, or still are, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you were in Berlin for some time, like, and at the same time you were in Vienna. So, can you tell us a bit about that part, and like how this, like what you learned out of it, and if you would do it again the same way, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is one thing Tyroleans sometimes are, they're sometimes stubborn. And we
Sometimes.
So we had 3 employees. They didn't want to go to Vienna. So what you can do, yeah? There's nothing you can do about that. We tried to force them, but that didn't work out. So we still have an office in Tyrol. Yeah, that's the story about the office Tyrol, the Tyrol office. We were in Berlin. It was really exciting. For us, it was to figure out if mobile OCR or maybe a little bit from the picture above, visual computing is a thing in Berlin because we heard that people in Berlin, they are really good at selling shoes, but that's it. And we want to get sure if that's true or not. We figured out that B2C is very, very strong in Berlin. So if you have a B2C idea, I think Berlin is a very, very good place to be for high technology startups like Anyline. Actually, Vienna is a very, very competitive place. I would say outside of Central Europe, there's no better place to be than Vienna. There are so many companies working in the visual computing area. There's so many employees, potential employees, because of the good infrastructure with the universities. So we are really happy about our Vienna office.
Coming back to Berlin, so you simply went there because you wanted to check out the scene.
Exactly.
And what did you learn? Like, how long did you stay? Who went there? And yeah.
We were 3 months in Berlin. Most of the time, Karina and Bernhard from marketing were there. We were at Hubraum. We won Hubraum at the first award. We won the Trend Adventure Award, where we got that Hubraum experience. And after even almost a year, we finally made it. Yeah, it was really hard to find a slot of 3 months where you're not in Vienna. Yeah, and it was a great experience. And I mean, Berlin is, I don't know how many people have been in Berlin. We can totally agree that's an awesome city, and it's great, and people are great, and I think if you are in Germany and you want to make a startup, there is no better place to be than Berlin. Yeah.
Yeah, apart from maybe if you're automotive or stuff, but from B2C, it's Berlin, maybe a bit of Hamburg. Yeah, so we found you on board. What changed, and like what is the current status of Anyline? How would you describe it? You already mentioned that there's competitors, a couple of them. How do you see your position in the market, and like where is Anyline heading apart from world domination? But
well, we are between seed and growth phase. If you take startup terms, we are having great customers. We create a lot of value with our customers. We have a superior technology, so the basics are okay. Basics are fine. We have an absolute great team. Team is fine, but the thing which is still missing is the revenue side. We make revenue, but there is a difference between making revenue and making enough revenue. We are now a team of 22 people, so do the math. It's a shitload of money, and you need to earn that. And that's the phase we are right now, where we need to get out of our hippie startup thing towards a company who is actually able to make money, yeah? Because that's, at the end, what the goal needs to be for everybody. Nobody invests in a company if there is no exit or no revenue or no goal, which means money for somebody.
So, like, where are you focusing? Still focusing on Austria, Germany, or is it wider already? And like,
most of our customers are not from Austria. We have customers from Japan, from the Netherlands, from the United States, from the UK, and that's something I actually learned from experience, that having customers in Austria is really difficult. It's much easier to get customers in Germany. It's even easier to get customers in the Netherlands or in the UK, because people just, I don't know, better know how to make business. I can't describe it, but it's really hard in Austria to find companies who are willing to pay for something where you create value, and it's also really complicated because they don't tell you if they want your services or not. It's just like a game, you know, they give you appointments and they tell you, well, we are thinking about it, let's meet up in 3 months. So you have that, you know, you're in a startup world, you're totally sure that you're gonna close this customer, yeah. And so you're telling everybody, our new customer, I just made the new appointment, and then we're gonna close him. And after 4 or 5 meetings, 1.5 years later, you still have that customer, you still meet with him, but you never close. And that's really dangerous, because that's something which just discourages you. It's not something, that's not the spirit you want. You want that, like, let's go and let's close it and let's make the deal. And that's something which tends to happen more often in Nordic countries or in US.
So you're already selling in the US, and like how do you organize your sales worldwide? Like it's not like you've got 200 sales staff that are in every country of the world. So
well, we are in a lucky situation that we are a software startup which is able to sell products over the internet. So our Anyline SDK can be downloaded fully automatically, and companies can try out our software. And when they get in touch, they more or less already know there is an advantage. They want to know the price, and all those things can be made from our office over phones or Skype. There are verticals where this is not applying. For example, the utility vertical. When you do something in the energy market, you still are in that old world where you need to fly somewhere, and where you need to go to exhibitions, and where you need to have a booth and talk to people really, in person. But that's very, very rare.
but nevertheless, you have that business, and you still like follow up on it because it seems to be quite a big business. Like, what's the big verticals you're currently in, and what you're looking for? What you can tell us? What's the future for Anyline? Because you said that you want to make the smartphone read everything, so there is a lot to be read, because there is stuff everywhere on the wall.
Yeah, that's our mission. We want to be market leader in mobile OCR, and that's quite a challenging goal. And so you need to make it visible that you can achieve it. And the most important thing is the focus, because you just have a certain amount of money and employees, and there is that huge world out there where you can create value at every second company, and that's maybe the most challenging part for us right now, to stay focused on certain areas. One of our key areas is the utility market. We are going to the eWorld, to the biggest convention in the German-speaking area in February. We have our booth there with our 25 square meters, I think, where we exhibit our Anyline. Also very interesting for us, the Mobile World Congress. We're going there. We're going to the Augmented World Expo in Santa Clara in June. So we already know the places where we need to go. And that's not like you're selling there. Totally not. Like, there's nobody signing a contract on an exhibition. If you heard that, that's totally not true. That doesn't happen at all. But what happens is that people, they try you out, and they make the buying decision, and eventually they buy. And that does happen.
So after 3 months later, all the money comes in.
Well, not 3 months, but it tends in the utility market 12 to 18 months.
So be very sure about what's your sales cycle. It's a very important topic.
That's something also very funny. When Hansi Hansmann invested in us, I made a business plan, very promising. I'm totally ashamed of that business plan now, because it didn't come true, but not like a little bit, but really, far off the charts. Yeah, and that's something everybody does the same mistake. Everybody makes the same mistakes. You think you're that Superman, and you're making sales everywhere, and everybody grabs your software, your product, but that doesn't happen. It's really hard work, and you need really great people for doing that.
So you're currently at the stage that you have a couple of like verticals, like utility market, and you want to be the world leader. So what is next? Like, what is the future next 3 years in Anyline that you think now, and in 3 years we have a look at the video and we'll have a big laugh about it, but what is the next 3 years of Anyline?
We are making our software more dynamic, that we are without any help of us. Every developer can customize his own SDK software towards his needs. We're gonna actually launch it as a developer tool, as a software developer kit for developers, to gain market validation and also visibility. That's one of the most important things, to be visible on the market. And besides that, we are going to push forward with enterprise sales. That's something many startups don't do because they are afraid of enterprises. But that's something where you can make money. That's something where you can make money. And that's something you should do. It's just like you shouldn't be afraid of enterprises. It's just a sales cycle you need to be aware of, that it's really hard to make sales from that point of view.
Enterprise, it brings me to one topic that I missed out beforehand. You have an advisory board, and because of your joint venture, you've got like Dr. Birwit, I don't know if you're Dr. Birwit in there from T-Mobile. Like, how important was the advisory board in general? What would you suggest that somebody does? When to get an advisory board? Who to put in there? Because that's something that I recently had a discussion with the founder about, and a very strong discussion. And maybe give us some insight in your learnings here.
Yeah, I'm very happy with my advisory board, I have to say. I'm really lucky. Having an advisory board, I think it's very important because you're not smart enough. Obviously, I mean, you're doing the same the thing the first time. It's not like you don't. It's just impossible to know everything. So it's good to have people around you who already did what you're doing in some way. It doesn't need to be exactly what you're doing, but still one side's journey. For example, we have a PR advisor, we have an advisor for the utility sector. So we have different advisors for different core topics, and they just know better what you should do. And if you have the great advisors, they don't push you, they don't give you advice and they don't expect that you're committing or you're executing their advices. They're just advices. So if you don't want to do it, you just don't do it. It's just not like, it's not written in stone. If you're not liking what the advisor tells you, you can just don't do it.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
At least you don't get sued by Nike. Just do it. Okay.
Yeah, and, maybe aside information, Dr. Birwit, we won his mentorship within the Trend Adventure Award, and I was curious how honest he's doing that, and he's doing it very honestly. We meet every 3 months for a couple of hours, and he gives great advices. He's a tough guy, but he's really, I mean, he is an entrepreneur. He founded companies, and he has actually really good advice. Yeah.
Okay, that's basically most of my questions are asked. I've got a couple more, but let's give the audience a chance. The rules are the same as ever. If somebody was already here, that means that you will ask your question. I will repeat it so that we have got it on tape. It's not really a tape anymore, unluckily. And we can put it online later on, and then Lukas can answer the question. So please, your questions. There's the first one right here. So, like, how easy to get a license? What's basically what do I have to pay as a small, maybe startup? Like, is it a shared model? Is it only licensing fee? Like, how does it work?
Well, our software can be downloaded over the website. You can just click the download button and then generate a community edition license key. So if you're using it non-commercial, it's totally free. It's also that if you're using it in a very, very tiny commercial way, you're having your own indie developing, you're an indie developer and you have your small app, we're gonna make, I don't know, a special deal with you. So actually very easy.
So simply contact them.
Yeah.
There was a question right in the back first. Yeah. So the question was, how do you manage your IP, especially like because it was not like the one big thing, but it was developed gradually. Do you have a patent? Like how do you handle that part?
Well, if you're very, very lucky, you have a good IP strategy advisor. Most of the companies don't have that luck. If you don't have a strategy advisor, there are companies like the AWS, which supports you finding the right IP strategy. For us, we created patents, but we have still a strong core of IP. We don't tell anybody about it. And I think that when it comes down to IP, the most important thing is security. If you have an office with the door open and employees who just blabble out everything they heard in work, you can have the best patent and the best strategy, everything. It just doesn't help you.
So like in your high-tech use case that you have, like with high technology, deep tech, it's very important that you like to keep security.
Very, very important.
Like how do you handle this with employees? Because of course it's not only a thing about saying, yeah, don't talk about it. It's a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing, and you need to. There's a good analogy. If you have a fence, you need at your home at your house, you need to build the fence at the same height all over your house. It doesn't help you if you have that 10-meter fence in front and the no fence in the back. And that's many companies do that. They have that huge security policy, and the cleaning woman is just like can steal everything she wants or everything he wants. That's something like the fence needs to be the same height everywhere.
Okay, any other questions regarding Anyline? There's one. So what is your stance on like how much could use Anyline profit from an incubator or accelerator? And like what is your stance on that? And maybe some insights in if you have applied to any, or like what is your position with your company and your strategy?
Well, we didn't went to an incubator, but we started within Sector 5 here, and now Sector 5 is kind of an incubator. So
they're actually starting an incubator.
Yeah. So nowadays we would have probably been in an incubator program. If you have a look at the most valuable startups in the US, many of them went to an incubator, and it's the same with mentors or advisors. If you don't need to do what they're saying, but at least you have somebody who did what you're doing already 5 times or 10 times. And within incubators, I think many of those struggling things you have at the beginning, from financial business planning, growth strategy, hiring, all that stuff, I think if you have somebody, a companion who is helping you out at the beginning, I think it's very valuable. I would totally do that if I would start again, yeah.
There's a couple of incubators now being ramped up thanks to AWS. Victor's in the audience, who's like responsible for that. So if you have questions regarding them, Victor's in the second row. If you have questions to incubators, he's like doing that on the side from the granting agency. Okay, any more questions? Oh yeah, over there. So please go into more detail about your like thoughts about and the licensing structure, because 50K is a good amount of money, and it might make sense or might not make sense to take it. So like maybe a bit more detail how it works, or what is your position on lifetime value of a customer in your business?
That's actually a good question, because pricing is one of the most leveraging parts in a startup. If you think about the value you're creating at the customer, in the ideal position, if you're doing a really great job, you can make an Excel and you can calculate how much money your customer is saving. And if your customer is saving $15 million in the next 3 years, $50,000, it's just not the right pricing. And the problem is that he will not pay you upfront with $250,000 or $500,000. The customer will not do that. So you need to find a way to convince him to take that pill. And it's also good for him, because most of the time, those things don't work. And the customer is paying much less than 50,000, maybe 10 or 20. But if it works out, it's just great for you. And if you have a business plan and you have that customer, you can show a potential investor your growth strategy and your scalable model. If you always take that upfront money, you will never be able to show that your business can grow fast. And I mean, if there is a customer where I know nobody in that whole, because the thing is that most of the time you have a vertical, people talk to each other. So if you make a really good price for one of them, everybody knows that you made that good price. But if there would that be that one single customer nobody knows about and nobody knows him, and he offers you that 50K, I'd probably take it. But most of the times, it's better not to do that.
There was a question in the second row.
You mentioned the business plan you're not so proud of.
So the question was, as you're not so proud of your first business plan, like how realistic do you think your current business plan is regarding the next year?
Well, I learned my lessons. I think it's also the matter of how much valuation you want to get. If you're really greedy, you need to have a very, very aggressive business plan. And with that very aggressive business plan, you probably fail brutally. And that's something which I would not give as an advice. But being optimistic or being very optimistic is something I would totally say that's fully okay. Because especially because Hansi Hansmann, I showed him this business plan and he probably already knew that. It's just, not, it's just not what, it's not happening. But he still, he knew that I have that vision, yeah.
There was a question there. Was first one, how, it was about the first business plan, was it? Yes. How much were you off from your first business plan, if you can say that? And maybe how much runtime you have with your current 20 employees, if you... It's like a sensitive information.
Unfortunately, can't disclose the second question. But the first time, 30%. I made 30% revenue from.
You made 30, so you 70 didn't happen.
Yeah,
it's not too bad actually, in my opinion.
It could be worse. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it could be worse. Could be nothing. That also happens. Yeah.
I have a question regarding to the business plans.
Basically, what is your thoughts on the US model of thinking huge and like taking over the world, and everything below a unicorn with $1 billion valuation is nothing? Let's exaggerate it, but anyway, like that's the goal, and then you should of course plan that way. Versus you saying, okay, we did 30% on our first business plan, and still it's okay because a lot of people don't do any revenue. Like, what's your thought on that? And like, what would you suggest? And
yeah, well, that business plan question is difficult because you're totally right. I mean, you need to think big, but on the other hand, somebody is investing in you on the basis of your business plan. So you're, as a, for example, CEO, as I am, you're promising somebody something, and I think if you're promising somebody something, you should just be sure that you're not, getting yourself in an uncomfortable situation. You could, I would say, that vision is something you could easily transport visually if you have the spirit and you're really engaged. That's something I think is very important. And if you take the business plan as general, what I find really important is that you separate between the income and the revenue, like the revenue and the spendings, because having a business plan for spendings is very important that you stay on the line. It's very, very important because that's the only thing you should be very sure of, that you're not overspending. That's the only thing you can truly be sure of, that it's in your hands, because you're giving out the money. But earning is always difficult.
okay. Any more questions regarding Anyline? Or everybody already hungry? There's one more question over here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe some insight on if the private partnership model, the PPP, like applies to your business model that you have, where you might, for example, do a model where you like have certain goals, and depending on the goals you get a certain outcome, and your payment is maybe fully dependent on the return on investment or on other goals. Does it apply to your businesses at all? Did you think about it? What is your position on that?
Well, it's a fascinating idea, yeah. I think that there are some businesses where you can implement such an pricing model quite quickly, and there are some businesses where there is already a pricing model in place. which everybody is comfortable with. For example, within the utility industry, SAP already calculates in transactions. So paying a transactional fee, it's everybody got, comfortable with it. They don't like it, but they just do it because everybody does it. And I think in such an environment, it's really hard to change the way you make money. But there might be industries out there which are more open for a pricing which is based on the performance.
I might add something that I discussed with a quite intelligent guy from Zendesk, who said, "Don't disrupt everything, disrupt one thing, and that disrupts." So it could be the pricing model you're disrupting, or other things that you're disrupting, but don't disrupt everything, because nobody will be familiar with what you're doing, what your value is. If you disrupt everything, then basically nobody can identify, even if it's the best product in the world, and it's like sells for nothing, and you get everything for free, and everything is great. But if you disrupt everything, it's going to be very difficult. Therefore, we have to end this now. It was a very interesting talk. Thank you very much. Give him a big round of applause.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
By 25th of February, we're going to have our next event. So 25th of February is going to happen. It's already, everything is organized. From this perspective, we only need one great speaker. We're going to get one. We're going to have 3 on the line, and we're going to get one of the 3. You're going to find it out on Facebook, Twitter, Meetup, wherever you find it out. Quick one, thanks to our sponsors as always. It's always a pleasure to be here in Sector 5. I already mentioned they started with an accelerator incubator program called 5 Stars, where they got some grant money from AWS. It's going to be an interesting point maybe for your future if you're thinking about where you go to in the future, because I think the first round they already did the screening and so on. So that's kind of something happening in here, and they're always great for organizing meetups and stuff, and it's always great to be here. So whenever you do something and you think about doing something, Sector 5 is a great place to be. It's my personal opinion. Second one, Holvi, I always say that one. I own 3 accounts with Holvi. It's an online bank from Finland, who's in Austria. They're great sponsors. They're always like really hassle-free. I love it about them. They're like, that's going to happen. They're like, great. That's going to happen, we're fine. Thanks to BVideo, who are supported with our live streaming, so a lot of people can watch us outside and think, what is this guy talking about all the time on stage? So that's good. And if you know somebody who wants to give us money, we are currently looking for one more sponsor partnership. We have a couple of interested organizations already, but if you know somebody who has too much money, I already asked Lukas, but he said, startup. So if you know somebody, we looking for one more sponsor, like to even out the budget strain, so that you can have drinks and foods. And with that, I'd like to thank my team, Hannes, Gernot, and Hedi over there, who are always here behind the round. Give them a big round of applause.